Okay, welcome everyone to the another technical session of the day. So with us, Mr. Arif Ahmad from Adobe. He's a technical architect and consultant at Adobe. So today he will going to share his knowledge and some insight on Magento Indexer, how it's working, how we can make it fast, and all other tips regarding the Magento Indexer. So let's welcome Mr. Arif Ahmad and start the session.
Thank you, Chirag. Hello, everyone. My name is Arif. I believe you can see my screen. So today we'll be, looking into Magento indexes. Let me show you the agenda. Mhm. Yeah. So we'll see what is Magento reindexing, just for if there are non-technical people also, so they can also get some understanding. Reindexing modes and types, understanding different tables for reindex, partial index logic, understanding the MView. I think it's quite important. Important crons for reindexing, performance optimization, tips, tricks, and definitely at the end we'll have the Q&A session. So feel free to type in your question in the Q&A as and when you have it, so that we can address it. If anything you see like it needs to be addressed immediately, maybe Chirag can help out with that also, so that I can clarify before we move forward. All
Yes,
right.
sure.
Sorry.
If any prompt, I will give alert.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So this is the normal definition of what is Magento reindexing. So it's how Magento transforms data such as products and categories to improve the performance of the storefront. And as the data is changed, it has to be updated and reindexed. So because there are so many different tables Magento uses to provide flexibility, and a lot of different features, like for example EAV indexers. So there are EAV table which is spread across multiple tables, like for example catalog. So catalog, product, entity, ent, and the varchar, decimal, and so many different tables. So Magento uses the reindexing to make sure it can give you the right data in a most optimized or faster way. So just one example. So if you change the price of an item from like 4.99 to 3.99, uh, Magento must reindex before it can display in the storefront. If you don't reindex, so I mean, if we just say like, okay, there's no reindex, then Magento would have to do all the calculation to show the right price in the storefront, and that can be a bit expensive. So let me see the next slide. So we have two different modes for each indexer: update on save and update on schedule. So update on save, I think you all can understand. So the moment we save the data, it's going to be reindexed. The data will be reindexed into the right tables, and it will be available to use immediately. There is another one which is update on schedule. So we don't want to do the on-the-fly reindex, but we want to say, okay, based on the cron job every let's say 1 minute or whenever the cron runs, it needs to do the reindex. Now, so what happens for that? The data is I have underscored this thing. You can see like this usually taken. So I will explain it a bit more as we move forward. So what to reindex is usually taken from the changelog tables. Again, what is a changelog table? We will see in the future slides. So I have just underscored these things. We have two different types of indexing, full reindex and a partial reindex. They are somehow interrelated, but not 100% same. So full index is when the indexer is marked as invalid. So there it can be done through CLI, or it can be done through the our code base. Like we can mark certain indexers as invalid based on some operation we do, like let's say we did a bulk import of catalog or product data or category data or anything. So we can mark the indexer as invalid. And in case we want to manually set, we can do it through CLI command, like we can invalidate a reindex. Yeah, so partial reindex, when we have mode as on save and we save something, then partial reindex for the affected data will be done. So as I mentioned here, update on save. So the moment we save, the data is going to be reindexed. So that is a partial reindex, which will only reindex the affected data. Again, when the mode is on schedule and indexer is not marked as invalid, meaning it is valid, but there are some changes, then also the partial reindex will be done based on whatever is changed only. So ideally, it is recommended to use on schedule and let the reindex be done based on the cron job. Let me go to the next one. Yeah. So some important tables for reindex. So this is the indexer state. It might not be same for everyone. Maybe for community versus enterprise, it might vary. But in general, this is how it looks. So we have like this many columns and status and indexer ID. Yeah, so status valid. So I have added some description on the right side. So status valid means there is no need to do a full reindex. Cron will run a partial reindex if there are pending backlogs. Again, we'll see more detail on those things. Status invalid, meaning a full index will be done, like the one we see, like this one, number 10 is showing as invalid, meaning whenever the cron will run, it will pick it up and it will do the reindex. I will explain on the cron later. Status working, meaning it is currently being executed. So in this example, I don't have anything, but if you see anything which is showing as working, meaning it is in progress. Yeah, so this is another important table, which is mview state. So this one was indexer state. This is mview state. This table is used only for partial reindex, or when we have indexer mode as on schedule. So meaning if we set indexer mode as on save, you will see everything is disabled over here, like the second one, for example. It shows as disabled. So if I set everything as on save, everything will be disabled, and no reindex will be done based on schedule, because you are saving on the fly. Again, version ID is there on the last column. You see, this is very important if you are going to debug something related to indexers. So you have to be aware like what is version ID. So it is the last version reindex based on underscore CL table, or we call it change log tables. We will see what is a change log table, I think, in the next slide. Yeah. So change log tables are very, like kind of special tables created only when the reindex mode is update on schedule, as I said earlier. So if reindex mode is updated on save, then we'll not see these tables at all. It's not like the table will be there will be no data. No, the table itself will not be there. And the name of the table will be view ID underscore CL. So if you see the previous one, this is the view ID, catalog, category, product. So view ID underscore CL, meaning it will become catalog, category, product underscore CL. So that will be the change log table for this view. So every view will have their own CL table. And it always have two columns, version ID and the entity ID. So as I was saying, like this is very important. So whenever the reindex is done, the version ID is updated in this table based on till what point we did the reindex. So that when the next cron will run, it will pick from where it left. I have added a question. Maybe if you want to answer, you can post it in the chat. I will answer it at the end of the session. So let's say if we update the same entity 10 times, how many entries will be added in the change log table? Uh, I will answer it at the end. Well, so partial reindex logic, how the partial reindex works. See, this is again from DevDocs. I have taken this image. So it's very straightforward. So if data is changed, okay, then it will check, okay, if the indexer configured is update on save. If it is update on save, it will do the reindex then and there. If not, then it will add the IDs of the change data to the changelog table and change the status to invalid. It might not always set as invalid. It might also be, in ready state sometimes. But if the changes are major, we might set as invalid. Mhm. Yeah. So I have added some description. So a status will remain as ready if the partial, change is there. The backlog will show the unique count of the updated data. So it's kind of related to the question that I was asking. And even in this case, if we invalidate the indexer, then the full index will be executed instead of partial. Okay, some of the indexers are set as dummy and they always work on save mode like customer grid. So I will share like little more detail on this one in future slide. Yeah, so indexer XML and mview XML. So these are two important XML files we need to create for indexer to work. This is the typical structure that we have. The indexer ID, ID is going to be unique, the view ID. So what mview it is associated with. Again, when we create the view mview.xml, the same ID, we have to use over there. And the class name. And the description is optional. It's not mandatory. Um, yeah, I have a little bit different indexer XML here, and I will talk about that here. So again, the same thing, indexer ID and view, but here if you see, we have a field set, and this is specific to the customer grid. So in this case, what is happening is so the description, again, as I said, it's optional, but if we add, then it will be available in the system tools index management page. I have not tried not adding, so I don't know. It might show blank. Again, field set. So this is important on this page. So it describes the field source and data provider of the flat index table. Meaning, if we are going to the customer grid, it is taking the data for whatever you see, like filterable or searchable. Those things are defined here. So only whatever we define here will be available in that filter or that search. Okay. Yeah, I will move to the next one. So mview.xml. Now this view ID, again, as I mentioned, it has to be same as we defined in the indexer XML. We have a class which is going to do the actual index, and the group is going to be indexer. This subscription is quite important here. So see, Magento uses the EAV, entity attribute value, as I was talking earlier. So there are different tables where the data is stored, like catalog, category, entity, decimal, in, text, varchar, date, time, and this is how it is right now. There can be more or less. So this subscription, what it is saying is, if there is any change in any of these tables, then we have to mark it as a change and add that ID to the change log table. So even if, let's say, you modified the description, it will add the data to the change log table. If you modified the price, it will add the data to the change log table. Otherwise, if we don't add, if we just say entity, then only when we maybe add or delete, it will be added. So I hope it's clear. Yeah, and sorry, the last one here, if you see mview.xml for the customer. So it uses a dummy class. You see, view ID is customer dummy, and the class is Magento framework indexer action dummy. So why it is done that way is because Magento always does the reindex the moment the customer data is updated, meaning it is always on the fly. It cannot be on schedule, and that's why they are using this dummy class. This class is needed because the mview is mandatory. Sorry. So without mv we cannot have the indexer functionality. So that's why this dummy class is introduced, so that in case you don't want scheduled mode, you can use the dummy class and always save. I mean, always do the reindex as and when it is saved. Okay. Yeah. So this trigger I wanted to show. I think I have added here like some details, like based on as I was saying, like as and when any change is there in these tables, the reindex will be done. But how the reindex is done, or how the data is identified, like what is changed, is based on the triggers. So there are three triggers: insert, after update, and after delete. Now, after insert and after delete are very straightforward. After update is something I have taken to explain on the next screen. Yeah. So if you see, it is trying to compare each and every field. Like I have taken rule table, so it is checking rule ID, name, and all the tables, all the columns. Yeah, so if there is any change in any of the column, it will add the data to the CL table. The rule ID will be added over there. Yeah, the same thing I have added. Just one thing here is the updated at field is not here in this check, but that is part of the schema. I mean, updated at column is definitely available in everywhere, but it's not included in the check. Now I will explain like why and how we can do more on this. So you see this type and argument, and we are having this ignored update columns. So this is actually a way to ignore certain columns and say like, okay, even if this column is updated, I don't want to mark it as a change. So updated as column is added by default by Magento. But let's say in case we want to introduce some more columns into that. Uh, Sorry, excuse me, I need some water. Um, Sorry, I think yeah. So even let's say we want to add more columns to or add more columns which we want to say like, okay, even if this column is updated, I don't want to count or mark as a change. uh, so I have added a quantity column. Why? Because let's say you don't want to do the reindex when there is a change in the stock quantity, but you want to do the reindex only when the stock status changes from in stock to out of stock or out of stock to in stock. So in that case, you can avoid a lot of reindex processings by just introducing this thing. But again, it cannot be applicable to everyone. You might have a different business scenario where you want to do reindex every time. But you understand, like this is the way you can leverage. And again, this is global setting, meaning if you say like quantity, it will be added in all the triggers, meaning even if you try to update, let's say category, there is no quantity, but it will ignore the quantity column. It's not there, so it will not be of course ignored, but if it is common, it will be ignored in all the views. Yeah, let me go to the next one. Yeah, so this is for about crons. So Magento have three cron jobs basically under one cron group. This group ID is index, and there are three jobs: indexer, reindex all invalid, all views, and all change, clean all change logs. So how Magento executes is always in the same sequence that you see here. Like it will execute indexer all invalid first. After that, it will execute indexer update all views, followed by indexer clean all change logs. So if let's say you mark some indexer as invalid, so when the cron will run, it will first fix or reindex all the invalid ones. After that only it will do the reindex based on change log. And this one is every hour, so this cleaning will be done every hour. So whatever indexers are reindexed, they will be cleaned every hour by this job. Yeah, this is indexer state.
Arif, sorry
Yeah,
to interrupt in between, but we have last 5 minutes.
sure, I got it. I have 4 slides. I should be fine. I'll try to speed up. So indexer status, I think it's self-explanatory, but a couple of things to note here is status ready and schedule status idle, meaning no action is currently being performed on this indexer. So schedule status will not be there if we have the indexer status indexer mode set as on save. It will only be there when we have indexer mode as on schedule. Again, reindex required and status idles means a full reindex will be done when the next cron will run, and currently nothing is being done. Processing and status suspended. So this status will be suspended when the full reindex is running, and it will show as processing over here there. Yeah, and status ready and schedule status working, meaning a partial reindex is done by the cron. So this just to understand by just looking at this, like what is happening. Okay, some performance optimization things that is also there in the dev docs. I have added a hyperlink over here. You can definitely go and find more details. I have added some highlights like how to improve. So one of the thing is batch size. So how much batch, how much data you are processing in one cycle is something you can control. It's not for all the indexers, but for some of the indexers you can control and improve on the performance. Yeah, so this is quite important. Like we should definitely avoid the manual reindex, but we cannot always avoid. So how we can run is we can just use the Magento cron to let it run, even if we have to run it manually. So what we can do, let's say I want to run the catalog inventory, I can just mark it as invalid, and when the next cron will run, it will automatically pick it up and do the reindex. So yeah, that's one tip maybe you can try to avoid manual jobs. This is the first point is quite important. So you can disable the EAV indexer if you see major performance degradation. And this is recommended by Magento, but it's not by default recommended. If you see performance issue and if there is no dependency, then you can do that. So there is a table called cron schedule. So if you want to see like, okay, how my jobs are doing, is it running, not running, or when it ran, was there any issues? So you can look into this cron schedule table against these job codes and see if there is any issue with that. Again, if you want to debug and see like, okay, what happened, maybe you will find more detail. Like let's say you don't see, you see them as running, but there is no process running on the server. So then it means like it got killed or something happened and it's not doing anything. So you can check like ps minus ef and grep for the index. Yeah, I think if you see any stuck jobs, you can set the status manually to something as not running, and then the next cron will run if you are sure, like, the process was killed already. And I think that's all. Thank you. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at arahmad@adobe.com.
Yeah, thank you, Arif. Already we are running out of time, so we
Okay,
cannot
sorry.
take questions. But any attendees have any question, they can directly reach to Arif on social media. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Arif, and
Thank you.
bye. And let's meet next year.
Yeah, sure. Bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.